Hi, I'm Steve D'Antonio. I'm in the engine room of this vessel, and for a little bit I'm going to talk about high output charging systems. Why and when would you need a high output charging system? Not every boat needs one, but if you're the kind of cruiser that likes to hang on the anchor without a generator running for an extended period of time, for half a day or so, maybe longer, then a large DC battery bank might make some sense. That and an inverter enables people to be disconnected from shore power, essentially not have to run a generator, and have the power that they need to run things like refrigeration and entertainment systems and lights and other things of that sort. So how do you do that? Well, if you have a large battery bank to support those needs, it's important to remember that you need to be able to charge that battery bank, and you need to be able to charge it effectively and relatively quickly. The standard alternator that most engines come with is really not designed to do that. It's designed to charge the starting battery for that engine and pretty much nothing else. It'll supply some loads while the engine is running for instrumentation and things of that sort, but really not much beyond that. It's not designed to charge a large battery bank. And if you ask it to do that, and many boats come this way stock from manufacturers with a large battery bank and a stock alternator, they really don't do it very well, and over the long run it will shorten the life of that large and expensive battery bank. But there is a way to deal with that, and that is using a proprietary high output alternator and a controller or a brain, for lack of a better word, that controls or determines how that alternator will charge the batteries, what we would call a regulator. Those two devices working together will enable your system to recharge a large battery bank in a relatively short period of time, provided everything is sized properly. Alternators of this type come in a variety of different types and sizes, so we want to make sure that we pick one that is the right amperage for the size of the battery bank. And we want to make sure that we choose a regulator that is designed to charge the type of batteries we're using. Now today, the three most common types of batteries, conventional flooded, gel batteries, and AGM batteries, those are supported by just about every aftermarket external regulator that you might choose for a high output alternator like this. So unlike a standard alternator that has its regulator built into it, high output alternators typically don't have their own regulator, and you choose an external regulator that you mount elsewhere and then wire into this alternator. That regulator then monitors the voltage of the battery bank and its condition and decides how much charge, or it tells the alternator essentially what to do, how much charge should it put out and for how long. And it does it in a manner that is as effective and efficient as possible to shorten the amount of charge time or increase the efficiency with which that battery bank is charged. But it also does something else that's very important. It makes sure that that battery bank gets the right type of charge, meaning that it gets the right voltage and current over the charge cycle. Typically we refer to that as a three-stage or three-step charging process. And it starts out with a bulk charge, which is the highest charge. Then it goes down to an absorption charge, and then it goes to a float charge, essentially a finishing charge, as the batteries are becoming completely charged or nearly completely charged. Again, most regulators will do that. There are a few features, however, that you want to look for in regulators before you choose one to make sure you're getting the best system possible. One of those is a self-diagnostic feature, meaning if something is wrong with that regulator or the system, that there's some means of you determining what that is on the regulator. Sometimes it'll be a digital display. In other cases, it might be a series of lights that are flashing that you then interpret so that you have some clue about what might be going on. Another feature that I like in an external regulator is temperature compensation. So in that case, the regulator is monitoring the temperature of the battery bank, and that's important because hot batteries can accept a charge more slowly, or will only accept a charge more slowly than cooler batteries. So you want to take maximum advantage of that. If the batteries are in the lazarette and you're cruising in Maine, they're nice and cool, you want them to accept the highest charge possible. But if they're in the engine room or you're cruising in the Bahamas, then they're going to take a charge more slowly. That's important because if we try to send the wrong kind of charge to those batteries based on their temperature, it shortens the life of those batteries. So we don't want to do that because batteries are expensive. We want to get the maximum time possible out of that battery bank. So another feature that you'd look for in your external regulator is remote voltage sensing, meaning the regulator has a wire that travels from it all the way back to the house battery bank, and it is sensing what the voltage is of that bank at any given moment and tailoring its charge to accommodate that bank or to accommodate its state of charge or condition. If it's sensing the voltage only at the alternator, well, there's a lot of wire between the alternator and the battery bank. We could have resistance there that would skew the voltage and maybe send an inaccurate signal to the regulator about what the actual voltage is of that battery bank. And when we're talking about voltages for charging purposes, tenths of a volt are very important. And so just a small change can end up affecting the way the system works in a very large way. So external or remote voltage sensing for a regulator, I would say, is very important and absolutely worth having, and it's worth hooking up. And it's important that the people that are doing this installation, if you're doing it yourself or if you're having someone else do it, that you read the instructions very carefully, because the temptation for remote voltage sensing might be to just connect that wire to the output stud on the alternator thinking, well, it doesn't really matter because that goes all the way to the battery bank, when in fact the manufacturer of the regulator will dictate otherwise. They'll want you to have a dedicated wire that runs all the way back to that battery bank, again, to get the most accurate voltage sensing possible. With a system like that, you can expect to have not only relatively quick charging, but efficient charging and a type of charge, once again, that ensures the maximum longevity of the battery bank. In another video presentation, I'll talk more about battery banks themselves as well as other means of charging them using high output chargers and inverter chargers.